Detroit rock star coming up to the podium. It is my distinct honor to welcome my friend, the Congresswoman of the people, Rashida Tlaib. So over the last few months, the nation has heard the hype, and let's get it straight, they're right? She is bold, she is real, and she cares about her people first. She is strategic, she is valued. Yesterday, I got a call from a mother whose son is fighting for his life. And I texted Rashida, and 15 minutes later, she contacted me back. And the first thing she said was, Danielle, I'm so sorry it took so long to get back to you. And she said, it's handled. Because that is Rashida Tlaib. Rashida is a Detroit girl. She went to Congress knowing what it's like to be a woman of color. She went to Congress knowing what it's like to be a child of immigrants. She went to Detroit knowing what it's like to live in a system and live in a city who has been fighting for decades to combat the disinvestment that has happened. And when Rashida got to Congress, she showed them exactly what it meant to be rooted in community. One of the first pieces of legislation that she authored was the BOOST Act. The BOOST Act would give disabled students, caregivers up to $6,000 in their pocket to fight all the things that they need to just survive in this society. Rashida is who I want to be like. Rashida is who I want my children to be like. And Rashida is who I want my president to be like. So please help me welcome the People's Congresswoman, Rashida Tlaib.
To Danielle for sharing this moment for me. I cannot freaking believe I'm up here. So I just want, right now, you know, one of the things I do as an organizer is that sometimes I bring people into the space that can't be with us. And so I want to take a moment to recognize our forever Congressman, John Conyers Jr. who transitioned today and joined the ancestors. He never once wavered in fighting for us. He stood on issues of equality and civil rights for our people. He served us and fought for us for over 50 years. So I know it's really hard to do, but I want folks, if we can just spend a little moment just of silence, just of presence, bring him into the space, bring his legacy into the space, please. Thank you. Thank you, John. So I want to officially say hello to my original squad. I am so grateful for you all, my 13 districts strong, for believing in the possibility of someone like me serving in the United States Congress. The only way I know how, unapologetically myself unbossed, unbought. And speaking of my original squad, I am so proud to be a graduate of Detroit Public Schools. And it is so good to be here in Cass Tech. I can tell you, growing up in this incredibly strong community has taught me that when we come together, we reach our goals. That's why I am so happy to announce that Senator Sanders and I have pledged $10,000 to Cass Tech Marching Band. To Washington, D.C. to march in the Memorial Day Parade. I am so humbled to think about where my journey started. I sometimes freak out, y'all. But my Palestinian immigrant parents, my father, who had dropped out of school in 4th grade, my mother, who only reached 8th grade, came to the United States for something better, for something that seemed impossible at the time. My dad's first real job was at the Ford assembly plant, right on the line, right there in Flat Rock, Michigan. He joined the UAW, and soon we became a union family who cherished the responsibility of voting and who knew the importance of solidarity. They raised 14 children in Southwest Detroit. Always striving for something better. They gave us more than they could ever know. In return, they watched their eldest daughter graduate from high school, from Southwestern High School, from college, from law school, and later be sworn into the United States Congress proudly. Proudly wearing my Palestinian mother's thobe. With your incredible, unwavering partnership, we hit the ground running in Congress, and I don't think they were ready for me. Or really for us. Because we strive and fight with love. We love each other. We love what we can be together. The strength in our communities is unmatched. Our bonds unbreakable. We lead with compassion and with unflinching belief that every person deserves a good life. One with dignity and comfort regardless of what we look like, where we were born, or what we believe. We know that we are worth so much more than Fortune 500 companies or billionaires, and that people must always come before profits. Always. The legendary Detroit activist Grace Lee Boggs said that transforming change doesn't happen because of a bill introduced in Congress or by the grace of someone sitting in the White House. It starts with us in the streets, in our communities, building movements right here on the ground, hand in hand with the people directly impacted by the injustice. When we are rooted in community, we know in our bones that doing nothing isn't an option. that throwing our hands up and saying that change we deserve is impossible just isn't good enough. We know right here in 13th District what doing nothing looks like, what it feels like, how painful it is. We are reminded every day that corporate greed and the people who serve it in government are the biggest threats to our democracy and our well-being. We see how our children are struggling to breathe because corporate polluters have poisoned our water, our air. Growing up, I honestly thought that smell was normal in Southwest Detroit, that I deserved to breathe that kind of air. Marathon violates its air permits while its executives rest comfortably in their mansions. We live in a district where billionaires get hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks while our schools close, and while the ones that stay opened had their water turned off because it was unsafe to drink. Including right here at Cass Tech. I want you to let that just sink in for a moment. This building we are at right here gathered just a couple blocks away from Little Caesars Arena, whose billionaire owners received $324 million in tax breaks in exchange for broken promises of jobs and housing. They took millions away from our schools. We were told that there's nothing we can do, that we must sit back and hope that the richest people in town care enough about the rest of us to throw us some scraps. We see what doing nothing feels, what it means when another neighbor loses their home to an entirely preventable foreclosure. People in our communities have overcome redlining, systemic racism, only to see their water shut off, their home taken away, simply because they're too poor to afford shelter or fell on hard times. We live in the Motor City, the region that gave the world the automobile. And yet many of us, cannot afford to insure the cars we drive because insurance companies are allowed to discriminate against us. Too many amongst us are struggling to live under our inhumane healthcare system where you die if you can't afford the bills that let healthcare CEOs live in golden palaces. Seniors who helped build this country are living out their years in poverty, all because we haven't mustered the collective courage in government to insist on a different way. We hear elected officials talk a lot about the middle class, but not nearly about the people who live in poverty, and that poverty is killing us. Millions of Americans are expendable to the CEOs who dictate our public policy, and too many of our representatives are complicit. It should sadly come as no surprise that these children, our children, caged up along the southern border, that there is a lot of money to be made in human suffering, that those campaigns won't fund themselves. You and I are so awake. We are awake, eyes wide open to the threat corporate greed poses to our lives. We have organized, we have marched and rallied, but where is our political leadership? Where is the empathy to understand that these are urgent challenges, that we cannot get these years back for our neighbors, for our children? Where is the political courage to take on fights that they say that are impossible? Because the impossible doesn't work for us. As you know, the occupant of the White House told me and my sisters, we're working on it. occupant of the White House told my sisters in service to go back home. Well, Mr. President, I am home. I haven't forgotten where I come from, where I came from, where my roots are. I grew up in the most beautiful, blackest city in the country. Where the mothers on my block, my Detroit Public Schools teachers taught me about the real history of our country, the kind that no one wants to see. You see, every corner of our district is a reminder that people power prevails. Our resilience will always succeed over evil. No amount of hate, racism, lies, and attacks on us will work, because you can knock one of us down, but 10 of us will stand up. We will always, my brothers and sisters, always outwork the hate. We deserve a president who understands that the corporate assault on our lives existed before Trump, and it will exist after Trump. Someone who will never back down from a fight with the wealthy and the powerful, who will call them out and bring our movement to their front yards. Someone who looks at a problem and finds the most transformative solutions, who isn't constrained by the corporate conventional wisdom of what's possible or worth fighting for. Someone who knows that we are far stronger than we are apart. That comes across from collective will, not from generosity of the powerful. We deserve someone who writes the damn bills.
Detroit. Thank you. You are a loud crowd. Thank you. This is an extraordinary turnout, and I thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Before I go any further, my wife has left, I wanted to introduce you to the next First Lady of the United States, Jane Sanders. Before I go any further, I did want to say a word about someone who was a very dear friend of mine, your late, great Congressman John Conyers. And tonight, we're not here just to mourn John, but to celebrate a life of enormous achievement. On a personal note, when I was elected to Congress in 1990, I wanted to be on committees which had strong progressive leadership. And at that time, John was the chairman of what was called the Government Operations Committee. And I sought out John, and he got me on that committee, and we served together for a number of years. As all of you know, John was a champion for civil rights. He was the man most responsible for having a national holiday for the great Martin Luther King Jr. And long before it was popular, John Conyers understood that health care is a human right. So, John, I want to thank you for a life of extraordinary service, not only to the people of Detroit, but to the people of America. And thank you all very much, John, for what you have done for this country. And let me now take a moment to thank the musicians who preceded me up here, the Cass Technical Band and Choir. Super Cool Wicked. Pasalacqua. And not that he needs a welcome from me, but let me welcome Jack White back to the school he graduated from. Let me thank Dr. Victoria Dooley, a staunch advocate for a Medicare for All single-payer program. Let me thank Berhenda Williams. Let me thank Danielle Atkinson. Abdul El Sayed is here. Let me thank him. And last but not least, let me thank your fantastic Congresswoman Rashida. Congresswoman Tlaib, has been a leader. Look, it's easy in Congress to vote the right way. But what Rashida has been doing in the less than 1 year, less than a year that she has been in office, she has become a national figure, not just in standing up to the vulgarity and ugliness of Donald Trump, which she has, but she has taken on in a very forceful way the greed and corruption of the economic establishment. And she has stood up to the political establishment as well. Rashida has been a leader in the fight for decent jobs, a leader in the fight for affordable housing, a leader in the fight for clean water, and she has shown that she is prepared to take on corporate greed and corruption and stand with the working class of this country. So I want to say thank you to Rashida, not only for her support, but for all that she is doing. And I will look to her for her leadership in Congress under a Sanders administration. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you all, not only for being here this evening, but for being part of the political revolution a revolution which will not only defeat Donald Trump, but which will transform this country. As many of you know, this campaign is about us, not me. We are in this together because, unlike Trump, we do not believe that this country's values should be based on greed and vulgarity and tearing our nation apart. We believe in bringing our people together around an agenda that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Today in America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. And Rashida took me around her district here in Detroit, and I met with beautiful young people who are going to schools in which they don't have adequate textbooks. They are going to schools where their teachers are forced to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make a living. I don't think it is too much to ask that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we pay our teachers a living salary. And that we provide the best quality education in the world for our kids. Today in America, 87 million of our people are either uninsured or underinsured. And many of them are unable to go to a doctor when they get sick. And the result of that is that 30,000 of our brothers and sisters die every single year unnecessarily because they don't go to a doctor when they should. Today in America, 500,000 people go bankrupt because of medical bills. Today in America, in a country that once led the world in education, hundreds of thousands of bright young people are unable to afford to go to college, and many of you have come out of school deeply in debt. Today in America, many of our senior citizens are unable to afford the prescription drugs they desperately need because our government has allowed the crooks in the pharmaceutical industry to engage in collusion, price fixing, and political bribery. And then on top of that, you got a president and Republican leadership who, after they gave massive tax breaks to the rich and the powerful, now want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So that's what we have in America. Tens of millions of people working 2 or 3 jobs. People can't go to the hospital. People can't afford the housing that they need, can't afford the medicine that they need. But there is another reality out there. And that is that in the midst of all of this pain and suffering, the wealthiest people in this country have never, ever had it so good. Today in America, we have more income and wealth inequality in the 1920s. Today in America, 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. Today in America, the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. Hey, we're just getting warmed up here. And today in America, where people in Detroit and Vermont and around this country are working 2 or 3 jobs, 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%. And not only do we have massive income and wealth inequality in America, but in the midst of all of that, there is also a racial disparity within the overall disparity. Today, the average white family owns 10 times more wealth than the average black family. Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy than white women. And the infant mortality rate in black communities is double that of white communities. And as a result of a broken and racist criminal justice system, black men are sentenced to 19% more jail time for committing the exact same crimes. And African Americans are jailed at more than 5 times the rate of whites. But it is not just Michigan, it's not just Vermont. If you look at states like Kentucky, look at states like West Virginia, what we are seeing unbelievably is a significant decline in life expectancy. And the reason for that is what doctors describe as diseases of despair. People all over this country are losing hope. They are worried that their children will have a lower standard of living than they do. They are worried that their lives are going nowhere, and they are turning to drugs, they are turning to alcohol, and in some cases, they are turning to suicide. Our job is to restore hope in America. Our job is to create a society in which all of our people have the opportunity to live long, happy, and productive lives. So today, and Rashida said this better than I can, but today we are saying loudly and clearly to Trump and the corporate elites that this nation belongs to all of us, not just a few. And whether they like it or not, we are going to end their greed and corruption. And we are going to create an economy that works for the children of Detroit, the children of Vermont, and not a handful of multi-billionaires. But this transformation of society does not come easily. The people on top suffer from a terrible illness called greed. And like a drug addict or an alcoholic, they need more and more and more. 1 billion is not enough for them. They need 2 billion. 2 billion is not enough for them. They need 10 billion. And if they have to step on everybody else in this country, if they have to attack the working class of this country, that is what they will do in order to increase their wealth and profits. And what this campaign is about is saying enough is enough. We need a new vision for America, and that is what our campaign is about. And in terms of political struggle and how we bring about the transformative changes that we need, let me quote Nelson Mandela, one of the great leaders in modern history. Mandela said, after spending almost his entire adult life in jail, he said, quote, "It always seems impossible until it is done." You all understand what he said. It always seems impossible until it is done. In other words, what the establishment, whether it is the economic establishment, the political establishment, or the media establishment, what they want us to believe is that real and fundamental change can never occur, can't be done. They want us to believe that our vision for the future is a pipe dream, that it is unrealistic, that it is utopian thinking, that it can't happen. They want us to believe that we are stuck with the rotten status quo. And by the way, it is not just Republicans who tell us. Too many Democrats tell us that as well. The most important, most significant opposition we face is not from the political establishment. It is not from the ruling class of this country. It is not from the corporate media. The most significant form of opposition we face is the limitation to our imaginations. And that is what Mandela was talking about. If you think it can't be done, if you think you are powerless, if you think the future only belongs to the rich and the powerful, then that's the future that you'll have. But if you believe that when we stand united, that when we stand for justice, that when we are prepared to take on the corporate elite, when we believe that, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. So I am begging you, don't believe anyone who tells you that moving toward a society of justice is impossible. Don't let anyone tell you that our vision is radical or extreme. And let me tell you what radical and extreme is. Radical and extreme is giving $1 trillion to the top 1% in tax breaks when 500,000 Americans tonight will be homeless. That's radical. Being radical and extreme is giving hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks and subsidies to the fossil fuel industry while they destroy the planet. What is radical and extreme is allowing the drug companies to charge us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Justice is not a radical idea. Justice is what we are entitled to as human beings. And as we go forward with our vision for a new America, we start off by saying to Donald Trump and his friends, no, you will not divide our people up based on the color of their skin, based on where they were born, based on their religion. We believe in a common humanity. Whether you're black or white or Latino, whether you're Asian American, whether you're Native American, whether you are gay or straight, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or whatever religion you may have. And when we look at our agenda, what our agenda understands is something that Franklin Delano Roosevelt understood. He understood that economic rights are human rights. We have a good Constitution and we have a good Bill of Rights. And it's great that we have the right to vote and freedom of assembly and freedom of religion. But what does freedom mean for somebody who is sleeping out on the streets tonight? What does political freedom mean if you can't afford to go to the doctor? So what our campaign is about is understanding that every man, woman, and child in this country has the right to health care as a human right. Now that, brothers and sisters, is not a radical concept. In fact, it exists in every other major country on earth. In fact, if you and I were to take a little walk over the border, you would find a country smaller than ours, but looks like ours, speak occasionally a different language, and somehow or another, a few miles away from here, they have managed to guarantee health care to all of their people, spending half as much per capita on health care as we do. Somehow or another, they have managed a situation such that a few months ago, when I took a bunch of folks with diabetes from Detroit over the Canadian border into Windsor, we were able to buy insulin for 1/10 the price that it is sold here in the United States. Somehow or another, they have created a healthcare system such that if you have a major medical procedure and you end up in the hospital for a month, when you come out, there is no bill. So, brothers and sisters, one of the great human rights struggles of this moment is to guarantee health care to all, and we are going to take on the healthcare industry, which last year made $100 billion in profit. So today we say to the drug companies and their corruption, we say to the insurance companies, the function of healthcare in a democratic society is to guarantee quality care to all, not to make billions in profit for the wealthy and the powerful. And no matter how much money they spend, and brothers and sisters, they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to protect this dysfunctional and cruel system. But at the end of the day, history is on our side. Healthcare is a human right. Medicare for all. And when we talk about our agenda, it is an agenda that says that education from preschool to graduate school is a human right. Four years ago, when I was here in Michigan, and I talked about the need to make public colleges and universities tuition-free, it was seen as a radical idea. Well, guess what's happened? State after state is moving in exactly that direction. And the day will come, and we will make it sooner than later, that every kid in this country will have quality child care, where our child care workers will be paid good wages with good training. That we are going to bring the best and the brightest young people into education as teachers. Because we know how important education is. We're going to triple funding for Title I schools. And we are going to move to a situation where every teacher in America earns at least $60,000 a year. In my view, not only must we raise the minimum wage to a living wage of $15 an hour, not only must we provide equal pay for equal work for women, not only must we make it easier for workers to join unions, but given the enormous amount of work we need done in this country to rebuild America, in my view, every American who wants a job should be able to find a job through a federal jobs guarantee program. We can create up to 15 million good-paying jobs, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure and even more jobs as we expand childcare, education, healthcare, and services for our senior citizens. Brothers and sisters, Donald Trump, our stable genius president, has studied the issue of climate change for years. In fact, he's just looking at the books right now, studying trends. And based on his enormous amount of research and scholarship, he has determined, against all scientific evidence, that climate change is a hoax. Well, today we tell Donald Trump, what can we tell Donald Trump? I don't know. See, if I use a profane word, I'll get in trouble. All right, he's an idiot. You made me say it. You made me say it. But in this case, so I'm going to tell the media, you made me say it. I wasn't going to. It's their fault. But in this case, his idiocy impacts not only our country, but the entire world. Because the truth is, Trump notwithstanding, what the scientists tell us is not only that climate change is real and caused by human activity. Climate change is already today causing massive damage in our country and the world. I am thinking, and my heart goes out to the people of California right now, all right? Beautiful state where people today are dealing with forest fires. They are dealing with the loss of electricity. We're dealing all over the world with increased drought, increased flood, increased rising sea levels, increased extreme weather disturbances. So no matter what Trump may think, you and I know that we have a moral responsibility to do everything possible to leave this planet healthy and habitable for future generations. And I want you to, when I talk about the greed and corruption of the corporate elite, I want you to hear this, and I want you to think about it for a moment, because you don't hear this much in the media or in Congress. And that is, I want you to think about the fossil fuel industry. Fossil fuel industry has known for decades that the carbon that they are producing is causing climate change and destroying this planet. And what they have done with that evidence is try to hide it. In fact, they have spent many millions of dollars on think tanks and all kinds of publicity trying to obfuscate the reality of climate change. And today we say to the fossil fuel industry that your short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. And that is why I am proud to say to you, I've kind of done what I think is the obvious thing to do. We listen to the scientists, and we have produced in this campaign the most comprehensive and bold climate change proposal ever introduced by any candidate for federal office. And people, my critics tell me that our proposal is expensive, and they're right. It is expensive, although it is paid for. But you tell me how much is too much in order to save the planet. So I am proud to work with Rashida and Al Alexandria, and many others in fighting for a Green New Deal, which will not only save the planet, but it will create up to 20 million new jobs as we move away from fossil fuel. And let me say what you already know. Climate change is not an American issue, it is a global issue. And Mandela, Dr. King, taught us to think big and not small, and here is my dream. My dream is that the people of the world, in Russia, in China, in India, in Pakistan, all over this world, stand up and tell their governments that instead of spending as a world $1.5 trillion on weapons of destruction to kill each other, that we pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. And when we talk about our progressive agenda, we are talking about fundamental reform of a broken and racist criminal justice system. We are going to end the international embarrassment of having more people in jail, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American, than any other country on earth. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, we are talking about ending all private prisons and detention centers in America. We are talking about investing in our young people in jobs and education, not more jails and incarceration. We are talking about ending the so-called war on drugs. A few days ago, we came up with a rather bold proposal which will legalize marijuana in every state in this country. We will expunge the records of those people arrested. And when marijuana is legal all over America, we are not going to allow a handful of corporations to control that industry. We are going to do everything we can to make sure that the people who have suffered the most, African Americans, Latinos, minority people, we will make sure that they are the people who benefit and profit from the legalization of marijuana. And when we are in the White House, we are going to end the demonization of immigrants in this country. We are on our first day. Through executive order, we are going to restore the legal status for 1.8 million young people in the DACA program. We are going to finally pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. And we are going to develop a humane border policy. Under our administration, babies will not be snatched from the arms of their mothers, and children will not be locked up in cages. And we are going to end the ICE raids that have brought terror to so many people. And when we are in the White House, we will not be intimidated by the NRA. We are going to move aggressively against the horrific level of gun violence that we see in this country today. And we are going to pass the common sense gun safety legislation that the American people want. You know, as a United States Senator, I often hear my Republican colleagues on the floor of the Senate talking about their conservative values of small government, of getting the government out of the lives of people. Well, today I say to those so-called conservatives, if you believe in getting the government out of the lives of people, then allow the women of this country to control their own bodies, not the government. In my view, a woman's right to control her own body is a constitutional right. And I will never nominate anyone to the Supreme Court who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. Now, some of my critics, and they are legion, they say, you know, Bernie, you got some good ideas, but how are you going to pay for them? And let me tell you exactly how we're going to pay for it. At a time when we have a tax code that is totally corrupt, a tax code that has given $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% and large profitable corporations, when we have a tax code which allows Amazon, company that made $11 billion last year, owned by the wealthiest guy in America, allows that company to pay zero in federal income tax. You know, I have an idea as to how we can raise the money to provide for the working people of this country. When we provide hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks and subsidies for the fossil fuel industry, I have an idea about how we can raise some revenue. And when, as a nation, we spend more money on the military than the next 10 nations combined, and I am proud to tell you I am the only candidate running for president who has voted against all of Trump's military budgets. Bottom line is that when we have an unprecedented level of income and wealth inequality, where for the last 45 years, the average worker has seen virtually no increase in his or her inflation accounted for wages, when over the last 30 years, the top 1% has seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth. You know what? I think we can find the money to fund our programs. Brothers and sisters, I thank you so much for your support, but this is what I want to say. And this comes from the bottom of my heart. No? And by the way, my heart is doing just fine. And I just want to thank so many people for their love and their prayers and their well wishes when I was ill. Thank you so much. And I appreciate all of the Bernie placards, but you know what? It's not about Bernie. Bernie can't do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. We are in this together. That's it. That's it. That is the message. That is the message. And what this campaign is about, it's not only thinking big, not small. It is not only having the courage to take on the corporate elite, and that is the greed of Wall Street, of the insurance companies, of the drug companies, of the military-industrial complex, of the fossil fuel industry, of the prison industrial complex. Are you prepared to stand with me and take all of them on? And it's not just Trump and the Republican establishment, it's the Democratic establishment as well. Now, as a senator, I have seen the incredible wealth and power of the 1%. Be clear. They have unlimited amounts of money. Healthcare industry will spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to stop Medicare for all. The fossil fuel industry will spend as much as it takes trying to preserve their profits. Prison industrial complex, military industrial complex, incredible wealth and incredible power. But at the end of the day, the 1% is 1%. And they may have the money and they may have the people. But if we are smart enough not to allow Trump to divide us up, if we stand together, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight, immigrant, native born, if we stand together and keep our eye on the prize, at the end of the day, 99% is a hell of a bigger number than 1%. So, brothers and sisters, let us go forward and defeat the most dangerous president in the history of this country. Let us go forward and take on the entire corporate elite. Let us go forward and transform our society so that we have an economy and a government that work for all of us, not just the wealthy. Thank you all very much.